You're about to check out a discussion we had during a Friday Morning Magic live stream. We get together every single Friday morning at 8 a.m. Central Time, and we have some of the most fun conversations that we think you can have in the world of cardboard. Now, in this discussion, you will see people aggressively agreeing with me and vehemently and passionately disagreeing with me. And if you think that's something you'd be interested in, make sure you tune in every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Central. All right, let's get into this one. I got a sore throat. Let me get through some of this. So, if we were to like put some blinders on and we were to check out Magic versus some indie TCGs, there's a couple things that I want to keep in mind. So someone help me in chat. Let's make a list of a couple things we want to keep in mind. First and foremost, when we use the argument for an indie trading card game that it doesn't sell online, it sells locally. It's all about the local game store and these communities. I want us to remember that every local game store, every single one that sells your favorite and my favorite indie TCG, every local game store that boasts a thriving community for an indie TCG also sells Magic the Gathering. So when we look at, if we were to look at like Flesh and Blood data or something, they're like, well, nobody buys Flesh and Blood on TCG Player. They all buy it at the local game store. Well, those local game stores sell Magic the Gathering as well. It's also worth noting that every single game store that doesn't carry your favorite indie TCG or my favorite indie TCG, whatever it might be, does sell Magic the Gathering. These are not attacks. This is the way the world works, right? This is just, we have to keep this in mind as we look at this. So all of those, every single store in the continental United States and maybe worldwide, who knows, probably sells some Magic the Gathering, right? So just something to keep in mind. And also, when we go to compare Magic the Gathering with things like Flesh and Blood, with things like One Piece, with things like even Disney Lorcana, and yes, things like Sorcery, I just forgot to say it on the bottom of the list there, it's important to note that some people who are into these games don't have a local community because not every game store carries it. Not every hobby shop carries it. So they have to actually buy the product through an online retailer, through an Alpha Investments, through a TCG Player, something like that. Not through Team Covenant. You know what? I am actually, and this is probably unfair, but I don't like that Team Covenant just got all the Sorcery, and I'm not a fan of that. Like, I don't know. I don't understand why it's an equal market. So I'm not bashing, but I don't have the biggest feels about Team Covenant right now, and maybe I'm just wrong. I could just be wrong. That conversation aside. So those are things that we need to remember. I asked people to help me make a list. You guys say I get derailed? You say I get derailed? I asked you to help me to make a list. Nobody made that list. I said, oh, hey, chat, you know how we're hanging out and doing all this stuff? Do me a favor. Help me make a list. Nobody made a list. So maybe Josh doesn't just get derailed. Maybe we all get derailed. Maybe this is a hive mind of massive derailment and we all deserve each other. Have you ever considered that? Very well could be the case. Very well could be the case. So with everything that we went through in mind, which nobody took notes on because, God forbid, anyone do homework on this stream, especially me. That's not happening. We look at things like the One Piece TCG. And let's kind of break down some of the newest data that we've got for Awakening of the New Era with the One Piece trading card game. So T-Buck submitted my list. If I check my email, am I going to have a dope list in my email of everything super well thought out? Because that sounds kind of like you. So the One Piece TCG on its surface, when compared to something like, and we can pull up a side by side here. Oh, we can pull up a side by side here. This is gonna take a little setup. It takes like 2 seconds here. When compared to the Silo, without considering anything like that, Savannah Lion, oh my God, Savannah Lion with the €22 donation, Savannah Lion Big shout out. Thank you so much, Savannah Lion. Next stream, we're going to get something in your honor. Let's make a note. Everyone, make a note. Oh my God, I'm going to tell you guys to make a note. You're not going to make a note. We're buying something live on stream in honor of Savannah Lion next Friday morning. Next Friday morning. Savannah, thank you so much for hanging out. But let's compare these two things in a silo. If you just look at these two pieces of raw information without considering everything we just talked about, right? You see this tell a very different story. And I truly believe that we are in a world where we're not looking at the entire picture. The idea that One Piece, hard to get, hot secondary market product. You know, there are people invested in One Piece in different ways that Lost Caverns of Ixalan is just not a viable product for. One Piece is probably not in every single local game store. I know it might be in your local game store. I know that, but it's not in every local game store. Lost Caverns of Ixalan is likely in every local game store on every single shelf. Right? So all of those things considered, if we put that aside and just look at these numbers, we're like, oh man, Magic's losing market share. Magic's getting just crushed. Oh, D-Buck, what are we doing? D-Buck, what are we doing? Oh my, you are, wow. That's crazy, D-Buck. Thank you so. Now, listen, who's taking notes about D-Buck and Savannah for the next live stream? D-Buck, big shout out. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you so much. That's incredible. We got to do something crazy next live stream. I'm not prepped for this live. We got to do something crazy. Oh, we're going to do something crazy. I'm excited. All right. Jeez, you guys are all crazy. So when you look at that in a silo, what are you buying? Which TCG? I don't know yet. It's got to be something Magic related. It's for us for this stream. We'll figure it out. We're gonna do something. Stream replay equals notes. Oh, you want me to watch my own stream replay? That's fair. So when you look at something like this in a silo, my point is we don't get the whole story, and we get this feeling that these indie TCGs could possibly be taking over. Oh my gosh, I keep doing it. These indie TCGs could possibly be taking over Magic the Gathering. And that's, again, understandable. It's understandable to feel that way. But we have to remember, with that all being said, with looking at these situations, not only, this is just 2023, right? And looking at some of these other TCGs, like Flesh and Blood has a pretty consistent release schedule. Not a ton of products available. Yoko, good morning. Not a ton of products available when you compare it to, 2023 for Magic the Gathering. And not necessarily a bad thing, but worth noting. And also, Magic has things like this. Magic has products like this. Magic has set releases that go this way. And for all the bad releases we talk about, for all the indie TCGs are going to overtake, they're not. This, my friend, is what you would call, when you look at the bigger picture, when you don't just kind of pick your spots. And remember, the set we're looking at right now, Commander Masters, widely considered to be a failure. Crushed it. Crushed all indie TCGs. Patrick says, but doesn't that count as two sets? Kind of. No, and the reason is I intentionally siloed Lord of the Rings Special Edition into its own set, its own standalone release. I wanted to look at those numbers separately. I wanted to get the opportunity to break those down, and I didn't want that all to get lost in the summary of all of Lord of the Rings. And so that doesn't tell the story of like, hey, this was a lot of reprints, so it was like sprinkles on the top, so that's probably why it didn't sell as well. But I didn't want kind of those two products to be, and while they are very much the same, to affect how we felt in that emotional time and, almost the 6 months that went by between those releases. So my point is, if we pick our spots, we can kind of look at that. And again, who talks about Doctor Who in chat? And when was the last time you all talked about Doctor Who? When was the last time one of you talked about the Doctor Who Commander product? Magic's releasing 1 million products. We've had Lord of the Rings Special Edition, which was controversial since then. We've had Lost Caverns of Ixalan, which has been a banger since then. When was the last time one of you talked about the Doctor Who product in chat? It's been a minute, hasn't it? It's been a minute. And this product, also insanely successful. Kind of a subset, standalone commander, 4 commander decks in a collector box. We don't have a lot of unique, crazy stuff here. We're not popping off. We're not doing anything game-breaking here. We got 4 commander decks in a collector box. And it's crushing it. Right? Like, absolute insanity. 100% insane. Worth noting that we live in a wild time. So when we look at Indie TCGs, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at Indie TCGs, and I'm not saying it's not viable to look at Indie TCGs. I'm not saying Indie TCGs are bad. I'm not saying that Indie TCGs have no space or they're dying or not going anywhere. I'm making none of those claims before any of the lynch mobs for any Indie TCG comes after me and attacks me. But like, remember, the Flesh and Blood set Dusk Till Dawn just got a massive pump. People are going crazy. Oh, Dusk Till Dawn. Oh my God. It's new Luminaris, new card. Everything's popping off. It's crazy. Let's get a little perspective. Right? Let's get a little perspective. This doesn't mean that these Indie TCG games are wrong. There are things that this company specifically does that I think are wrong and I don't agree with. But as a whole, numbers like this don't mean that a certain Indie TCG is dying. It doesn't mean that a certain Indie TCG is failing. It's not an overall indicator of the health or state of some Indie TCG, even if I don't like the company that makes the Indie TCG. However, it is important to put it in perspective, right? It is important to put this thing in perspective. It is important to remember the space you're playing in. Biggest failure set of the year. Probably. 1 of 12, 11 sets. Hottest current pumping set of the year. Like, let's just remember the sandbox that we're in. And when it comes to Magic the Gathering as a whole, I think it's safe to say, I don't think it's losing market share from Indie TCGs. And even Indie TCGs that are doing extremely well and doing a lot of things that I agree with and are challenging the model of Magic the Gathering. And that's why I always want to be careful with these comparisons. It's okay to love Indie TCGs. It's okay to be all about them, get in their communities. What's not okay? What's not, and I'm going to say, you know what? I'll say it. It is not okay to claim that your favorite Indie TCG is taking down Magic the Gathering. I lived it, guys. I did it. I sat in this very chair, and I was determined that my favorite Indie TCG was going to take down Magic. It was going to rival Magic the Gathering. It was going to be one of the big 4, and now maybe it's number 7. Like, so there's just perspective, I think, is important here. As far as losing market share, I don't think we're there. I don't think we're going to be there. I don't know if we'll be there in our lifetime. And my hot take here is simply, if Magic the Gathering... Hold on. You guys got me fired up. I feel like an old-timey newscaster. If Magic the Gathering gets to a point where it can not only be competed with, but is at risk of being taken down by a new or Indie TCGs, I think that's the moment that TCGs are probably on the way out. It's already hard enough. We live in a digital age. We live in an ever, online world. It's extremely difficult. All right, hold on. So my rant is over. Let me catch up with you guys, because D-Buck with the massive donation said, I have an idea for a purchase for you being a fellow Dragon Ball fan. Have you seen the signed character cards? I have not, D-Buck. I have not seen the signed character cards. I have seen... Do I have it here? Oh, hold on. Hold on. Where's my binder? Where's my binder? Hold on, where's my old... I have, and let's go, we'll go full screen for this. Oh, no, we'll go. I have the Score Z card game, a bunch of cards signed by the voice actor of Vegeta. From when I played with my good buddy John and all of our friends. So, I am familiar with the ways of the Dragon Ball, my friend. I have been around the Dragon Balls before, as they say.